Today, I'm going to see if I can beat Pokemon Black 2 with Hardcore Nuzlocke rules using only bug types. Bug types are widely considered the worst type in all of Pokemon. Not only that, but Black and White 2 are also considered among the hardest games to Nuzlocke. So this is definitely going to be an interesting one. If you're interested in the rules to this challenge, you can pause here, or you can check them out down in the description. And before we get into the run, let's quickly take a look at all the bug types that'll be available to us in the game. You can say what you want about Gen 5, but they have some really well-designed bugs here. And this is probably the first gen you could actually say that. Without further ado, let's get into the run. The game begins much like any other story, with a mother and a child. We leave our house and immediately meet our best friend and rival, Hugh. Then we head through town and meet up with Bianca, who gives us our starter. Obviously none of the starters are bug types, so we go with Snivy to give our rival Tepig, which is a fire type, which of course bugs are weak to. And you already know we love a challenge. From here we head on to Route 20 where we find our first encounter. Sawaddle. We catch it and name it Basil, because we decided to go with a spice-themed naming convention for this run, because of how spicy those Gen 5 bugs are. Turns out Basil has a sassy nature, which increases its special defense for decreased speed, which is pretty bad, but it is what it is. And from here we head on to Flockacy Ranch, where we have our first rival battle with Sawaddle. Luckily Hugh's Tepig doesn't have a fire move at this point, so it kinda is just an RNG fest of trading hits, but we do end up coming out on top. After a resounding victory, we track a Team Plasma Grunt into the woods, and he throws a TM at us, kinda like how you should throw a like at this video if you're enjoying it, and subscribe to the channel for more content. It does really help me out, so I would greatly appreciate it. Anyway, our next stop is the first gym, and unlike our last run in Ultra Sun, this schoolhouse is not very threatening. The gym leader Charon specializes in normal types, and they really just like to use work up instead of attacking. He leads with the Patrat, who we do massive damage to with our first bug bite. It uses work up naturally, and then we finish it off with a second bug bite. Next up is the Ace Lillipup, who we almost take out with a critical bug bite, but it survives with a sliver of health. Not too big of an issue though. After a heal, we finish it off with a couple more bug bites. And that's the first gym. From here we head back to Route 20, and there's a new area unlocked. And for the purposes of this challenge, I'm going to be treating this as a separate area, meaning we can get our next catch here, which is a Venipede, and we catch this poisonous little boy and name him Oregano. This encounter is crucial because the next two gyms are Poison and Bug respectively, which Sawaddle does not do well with. And it turns out Oregano has a rash nature, which is special attack up and special defense down, which is pretty terrible because this is a physical attacker. From here we head into Verbank Town, where Roxie, the gym leader, and her dad, Pop Roxie, yes, that is his actual name, are having a very public fight. Because Roxie's dad wants to go be a movie star at Pokestar Studios, while also being a ship's captain. And Roxie doesn't think her dad should have dreams. Personally, I'm on Team Roxie. From here we head into the Verbank Gym, which has one of the best gym themes of all time. I'll let it run in the background for your listening pleasure. Like I said before, Roxie specializes in poison types, and in this gym, Bug does not resist poison, so Sawaddle will be basically useless for this fight. So we lead with Venipede, who luckily has the old Defense Curl Rollout combo, which if you don't know, if you use Defense Curl before using Rollout, it doubles the damage of Rollout. We chain a few rollouts together on the coughing, and then we have a super charged up rollout ready to go for when the Whirlipede comes in. Luckily, we don't miss, and we take it out in one hit. Second gym down. It turns out, while we were fighting the gym leader, there was actually a talent scout from Pokestar Studios in the crowd. And he said we have what it takes. This could be our big break. And we head over to Pokestar Studios and we meet Stu D.O. himself. He tells us we're gonna be a star. Finally, our dogfighting days are over. We head inside the studio and we film a movie with movie star Bryson himself. But once we wrap shooting, we find out it was all just an annoying tutorial the whole time. So we go back to our Pokemon Gym Challenge. From here, we're able to evolve our Swaddle into a Swadloon, and then, through the power of friendship, into a Leavanny. After dealing with some Team Plasma nonsense, we're finally off to Castelia City. Castelia City is one of my favorite cities in all of Pokemon. They actually succeeded in making the city feel kind of populated and big. We head over to the gym, and of course, the gym leader isn't home, so naturally, Hugh and I go search the most obvious hiding spot. The sewers under the city. And turns out he's there. But before we head into the gym challenge, we evolve our Venipede into a Whirlipede. And from here, we head into the gym. I have to say, they nailed the gym redesigns from Black and White 1. This place is so creepy with these spider tunnels. Before long, we're ready to challenge Berg. Berg specializes in bug types, which luckily we have an answer to through our only rock type move, Rollout. We start out by setting up a defense curl to double the rollout damage. Unfortunately, Swadloon gets a couple string shots off on us as the rollout damage is building up, but it doesn't get too much damage off on us. The only problem is now we're slower than this Dwebble, which hits us super effectively with all its rock moves. Unfortunately, it takes 2 rollouts to take this thing out, so we take a ton of damage from Smackdown. And at this point, we're locked into rollout, so we just have to hope that Leavanny doesn't take us out. Luckily, we live through the cut and take it out with a charged up rollout. 3 gyms down, 5 to go. Next, we head north to Route 4, where we meet Colress, who I think is one of the main villains of this game, I don't know. And through the power of song, Colress is able to clear the streets of these Crustal. Afterwards, he of course challenges us to a battle. He specializes in steel types, which will become scary, but at this point, his team is not very strong. We take his lead Magnemite out with return from our max friendship Leavanny, but not before it gets a really annoying paralysis off on us. We actually end up taking too much damage from the Clink, so we have to swap in Whirlipede. Not too much of an issue though, we take it out with Rollout. Our next stop is the Desert Resort, where we can finally add a new member to our team, this Dwebble. Dwebble's a great addition to our team because of its huge physical defense, and it resists one of our main weaknesses, fire. And we nickname it Kuman. Not Cumin, Kuman, okay? And it turns out Kuman has a bold nature, which is defense up, attack down, which is beneficial but could be better. Also, it has sturdy instead of shell armor, which for Nuzlocke, I think shell armor is a little bit better because no crits is more consistent, but they're both quite good. From here, we head into Nimbasa City, but before we challenge the gym, we make a quick detour up to Lostlorn Forest, where we catch a Heracross, who we nickname Mustard, which is a spice, look it up. And Mustard has Guts and a neutral nature. Guts is an awesome ability that boosts your attack by 1.5 times when you're afflicted by a status. And with Heracross's attack already being so high, this is insanely strong. The last thing we do before we challenge the gym is evolve Whirlipede into this disgusting creature. And with that, we head on to Innova's next top model to challenge the electric type gym leader, Elesa. For this gym, we lead with Dwebble because our plan is to set up Stealth Rocks since her signature move is Volt Switch, which will have her Pokemon switching in and out a lot, and Stealth Rocks damage will start to add up. On the first turn, her Molga does use Volt Switch and brings in her Flaffy. From here, we get our Stealth Rock set up, and we immediately switch to our Guts Heracross, which we had burned before the fight. The Flaffy takes one look at this big old beetle and nopes out, and she brings in her Ace Zebstrika. This thing is scary for us because it does have Flame Charge, which is super effective against everyone on our team except for Dwebble. Interestingly, it goes for a Volt Switch and brings the Flaffy back out. We immediately dig and hit the Flaffy with our dig the next turn. This is more than enough to take it out, but the chip damage from burn has left Heracross extremely low, so we do end up swapping into Scolipede. The Zebstrika, seeing a kill on Heracross, goes for a quick attack, but instead of taking out the Heracross, it actually gets poisoned from our poison point. More chip damage can't hurt against this thing. We go for a Protect to stall a little bit more and let the poison damage rack up, and it's at this point I realized that while Scolipede can learn dig, I did actually forget to teach it dig before the fight, but not too big a deal. The poison chip damage and a couple poison tails are more than enough to take it out. Finally, she's down to just her Emolga, who thankfully does not have acrobatics in black and white too, so we're free to swap in Leavanny, who resists all of its attacks and takes it out with a few bug bites. And we've somehow managed to make it through half of all the gyms. And we did such a good job in that battle. Elesa lets us join her crew. From here, we move on to the Driftveil Drawbridge, where we made this heartbreaker. Charles. And we're lucky to get out of there with our hearts still intact. We do manage to learn a couple things about rotation battles, and also a little bit about love. We head over the drawbridge and into Driftveil City, where we have a quick battle with Team Plasma, and then we get our next catch, a Shelmet. Now we can't evolve this thing because we don't allow trade evolutions in our runs, but we do have an Eviolite, so this thing's decently high base defense is gonna be okay. We nickname it Sir Salt and see that it has a naive nature, which increases its speed and lowers its special defense. Not particularly useful, but shell armor is pretty handy. And now it's time to head down into the new and improved Driftveil Gym to challenge Clay, who specializes in ground types. Even though ground is a good matchup for Bug, Clay's Ace Excadrill is still super scary because it does carry Rock Slide. But we calculated it out and figured out if we can get an agility onto our Heracross, then we should be able to sweep this gym easily. So we start off with a Yawn from Shelmet and then swap in Scolipede, who's carrying agility and Baton Pass. We get the agility off and then Baton Pass it to Heracross, and it's a clean sweep from there. We karate chop this Krokorok and it goes down. Next up is Sandslash comes in and actually tanks a Brick Break, so it wasn't really a clean sweep, but a second Brick Break is more than enough to take it out. Finally, he's just down to his Ace Mole Man, who goes down to one Brick Break. Clay and Elesa are both kind of gatekeeper gyms, so I'm happy to get out of there unscathed. From here, there's this really annoying thing called the Pokemon World Tour, which we're way over leveled for some reason, and I won't bother to show it. But something exciting, we do evolve Dwebble into Crustal, and his back looks strong enough to carry our whole team to the finish line. From here, we head back to Relic Castle, where we're able to pick up the static Volcarona encounter. This thing not only adds another fire resistance to our team, but it adds some crazy special attack and speed. Too bad its learn set is pretty terrible, but what it lacks in powerful moves, it more than makes up for in its nickname, Paprika, which was a chat suggestion and I cannot claim any credit for that. Which reminds me, you should check out my stream. I stream on Twitch just about every day, and sometimes on YouTube if you're lucky. Links in the description. Unfortunately, it turns out Paprika has a lonely nature, which increases its attack and lowers its defense, which is pretty terrible, I won't sugarcoat it. But that doesn't stop us from heading into Chargestone Cave, where we add another very crucial member to our team, a Joltik. This sparky little guy is going to be insane for Skyla's gym, which is the flying type gym and is coming up next. We nickname it Dill and check its nature, and see it has an adamant nature, which is not very useful at all. At least it does have compound eyes, which will make thunder more accurate. And from here, we immediately evolve it into a Galvantula in preparation for the next gym. And we head out of the cave and into Mistralton City, and then into Mistralton Gym, which is the #1 most dangerous workplace I've ever seen. It can't be worth it to risk your life every day just to challenge gym challengers on their way to the leader, right? But I digress. We head through the death trap and eventually challenge Skyla. Now, we go into this gym without much of a plan because we think Galvantula is going to sweep, but it turns out it's not even faster than the Swoobat, and we can't even take it out with one Electro Ball because of that. So, to avoid losing Galvantula, which is extremely crucial to take out our Ace Swanna, we end up making a normal swap to Crustle. The next turn, Skyla heals up with a Hyper Potion, which we definitely should have read and used Volt Switch to switch out instead to get good damage on it, but not too big a deal. A Rock Slide from Crustle is more than enough to take out the Swoobat. Next up is her Skarmory. So we swap in Paprika to tank the Steel Wing. We survive it pretty handily, and we hit it with Incinerate on the next turn, which due to its pathetic 30 base power, does only about half damage. Luckily, Skarmory goes for an agility and we don't take any more damage. The next turn, we tank another Steel Wing and ultimately end up taking it out with another Incinerate. Finally, she's down to just her Ace Swanna, but due to our miscalculations, we have to make a gamble swap back into Galvantula. Thankfully, it's able to live on 3 HP and outspeed it the next turn to take it out with an Electro Ball. We certainly could have planned that one better, but it worked out. From here, Skyla takes us for a ride on her plane, and we go all the way across the beautiful land of Unova, and we end up in the desert town of Lentimus. And while we're here, we catch a Scoryupi, which we can't evolve, so it doesn't really make the team. Next, we head into Reversal Mountain, where we meet up with Bianca and some of the strongest random trainers in the game, like these two, who have an Excadrill and a Darmanitan for some reason. Luckily, we make it out of there unscathed and head into Undella town. And on our way out of there, Hugh jumps us and forces us to battle him. And his team is definitely powered up since the last time we saw him. He leads with Unpheasant, so we go with Galvantula and take it out with a Volt Switch. We swap into Crustle, but we know this will bring out a Simipour, so we end up swapping to Leavenny on the next turn. It does get burned by Scald, but even with half attack, Leaf Blade is still more than enough to take this thing out. Next, he brings in his Ace Embor, so we obviously get Leavenny the F out of there. And we bring in Crustle, who takes this thing out through a series of digs. This fight can be really dangerous if you're not prepared. Next, we head north to Route 13 and into Lacanosa town. And here, we team up with Hugh to take out Zinzalin and his Team Plasma Grunt. And after shattering this snowflake, we move west to Route 12, where we pick up a Vespiquen. We give this hot girl the nickname Cayenne, and it turns out she has a hardy nature, which is neutral, and we will definitely take that with the other natures on this team. West of Route 12 is the Village Bridge, which has one of the best themes and this undefeated old man. Unfortunately, we have to end that streak. Next up is Route 11, where we catch an unimpactful Carablast, but it's always good to have backups, right? Finally, we make it to Opelucid City, and head into the gym. I don't know what it is about Unova, but boy, are these gyms dangerous. We somehow managed to hang on to this mechanical dragon and challenge the dragon gym leader, Drayden. Drayden's team hits hard, and his ace, Haxorus, actually has access to Dragon Dance, which can sweep our whole entire team and did end a few of our runs. On top of that, he has access to his signature move, Dragon Tail, which will phase your team and makes it very difficult to set up. So our plan is to lead with Sir Salt and take his lead out with a Yawn. And from here, we bring in Scolipede to set up an agility and a Swords Dance, and ultimately baton pass it to Heracross. Unfortunately, the Druddigon wakes up after one turn of sleep. Fortunately, Scolipede is able to tank 2 crunches and get fully set up to pass it off to Heracross, who does what he does best and punches the living crap out of Druddigon, Flygon, and ultimately Haxorus. This gym can be a complete run-ender, so we were not messing around this time. After we wrap up our battle in the gym, the Team Plasma Frigate rolls up and hits us with an Icicle drive-by. And of course, it falls on us to fight him off, which we do. Pretty uneventfully, honestly. But unfortunately, that footage was lost to time. So instead, here's some footage of me running through the Marine Tube, which has got to be one of the best designed areas in all of Pokemon. I stand by this. We make it all the way to the other end and arrive in Humalau City, where we challenge the 8th gym. and its leader, who specializes in water types, Marlin. Now, Marlin's team is not too scary. The only thing that worries me is his lead, Carracosta, who has access to Shell Smash and has Sturdy. So to make sure he doesn't go for Shell Smash, we lead with Volcarona and tempt him with a 4 times effective Smackdown. Just before he can hit that juicy hit, we use U-Turn to swap out, which both breaks the Sturdy and also allows us to get in Leavanny. But our genius strategy does not go entirely smoothly because Carracosta hits a huge crit on us and almost takes out Leavanny. Fortunately, there's no setup required and Leaf Blade takes it out on the next turn. Next up is Wailord, who goes down to a Leaf Blade. We weren't entirely sure this would kill, but we risked it, and it paid off, so never punished. Finally, he sends in his ace Jellicent, and we're feeling lucky, so we go for a Leaf Blade, which takes it out. And that'll do it for the gym fights. Unfortunately, it's at this point where the fights in the game start to really ramp up in difficulty. Luckily, as we head into the Seaside Cave, we get to add the fan favorite Shauntal to our team, who is just the tankiest little boy with great resistances. And according to its Pokédex entry, it makes delicious juice right out of its shell. Gross. We nickname this thing Time and make an endless amount of terrible puns. I guess it's time to check Shauntal's nature. Turns out it has a neutral nature and sturdy, both of which are very useful. Q and I track the Plasma Frigate over to the side of the Seaside Cave. Marlin busts open the door for us, and then, in classic Pokemon adult fashion, says, I'm tired, you kids can handle it, right? Which we obviously can, but it's just the principle of the matter. We end up fighting a series of uneventful battles and doing a puzzle or something, and then the frigate takes off, and we track it to another location, and immediately do a series of annoying battles and another puzzle. I hadn't played Black and White 2 before, and I really thought we were going to make it out without having to do an evil team sequence, but no such luck. This second frigate experience culminates with a battle against Colress, and this time around, he's got a full team of certified Steel-type hitters. He leads with a Magneton, and we lead with Paprika. We hit it with a full power Heat Wave, but unfortunately, this Magneton has Sturdy, so it lands a Thunder Wave on us. Thankfully, we packed a Lumberry for this very occasion. The next turn he heals, but we end up taking it out with a Giga Drain and a Heat Wave. Next up, he sends in his Metang, who has Rock Slide, and we don't want to risk the 10% chance that Heat Wave misses, so we bring in Heracross. We hit it with a close combat, but unfortunately I forgot that this thing is part Psychic, so it doesn't actually finish it off. Fortunately, it doesn't go for an actual attack, like a Zen Headbutt or something, and just goes for agility. We're worried about our drop defense, so we swap in Leavanny, and we finish it off with an X-Scissor. Next up is his Magnezone, who has Sturdy, so we decide to break that with Leavanny. But it also has Explosion. After a couple Leaf Blades, we realize that this is not really going to take it out in any amount of time that's reasonable. So we bring in Volcarona because we think, wow, it won't go for Explosion above half health, right? And it turns out it goes for Explosion. Not only does it go for Explosion, it hits a critical Explosion. I ran some calculations, and this is actually the only way that Volcarona dies here. Incredibly unlucky. But we persevere. Next, we bring in Heracross, so of course he brings in Beheeyem. So we swap the Vespiquen and take it out with a few B attacks. Finally, his Ace Klinkling comes in, so we bring Heracross back out. Luckily, it only goes for 3 Shift Gears instead of attacking, so we're able to take it out with Brick Breaks. After the second Shift Gear, if it had decided to attack, it would have swept us. I don't know what was going on there, but I'll take it. After we defeat Colress, we have our first run-in with the ultimate evil of this game, Ghetsis, whose name I will be saying like this for the rest of the video, so get used to it. He makes a getaway, and Hugh actually gets his sister's cat back, which is something he was doing this whole game, I think. From here, we battle our way off the frigate, and then we have an ultimate showdown against Ghetsis and Kyurem. Since I played Ultra Sun right before this game, this legendary fight is pretty reminiscent of the Ultra Necrozma fight. Basically, a fight against an ultra powerful legendary. You should check out my Ultra Sun video though. It's pretty good. Our strategy here revolves around one simple move, Toxic. First, we land a Power Split on this thing to average our attacks out between Shauntal and this thing, which is a huge nerf to Kyurem. Then, we hit a Toxic, and it's straightforward from there. We stall it out with a few Protects, and ultimately, the poison gets the best of Kyurem. And now, all that stands in the way of us battling the Elite Four is Ghetsis. Ghetsis' team is no joke. In the original Black and White, he was actually the champion fight, and I believe his team is largely unchanged from that, albeit lower level. Whatever the case may be, he is certainly no pushover. We lead with Shauntal and go for a Toxic stall strategy on his Cofagrigus. The only problem is, this thing also knows Toxic. So we end up doing this weird dance where we're trying not to get Toxic and read his Toxic, and we end up swapping around a whole bunch and taking a ton of damage on Shauntal and Vespiquen, and also Scolipede. And this is all just to take out his first Pokemon. We swap around a bunch, and he ends up getting a Toxic onto our Shauntal. After stalling for a while, the Cofagrigus gets down to just a sliver of health, which allows Ghetsis to get a full restore off. Those leftovers it's holding really made a difference here. Through a series of 8 or so switches, we finally managed to stall this thing fully out, and next, he sends in his Hydreigon, which we weren't expecting, but we're pretty happy to see. Our answer for Hydreigon is Heracross, and he's still pretty healthy this early in the battle. And we're able to outspeed it and take it out with one close combat. Next up is Electros, who knows Flamethrower, and we don't really have any great switches, so we go to Crustle. Crustle has a hard time against this Electros because it has pretty low special defense, but thankfully instead of going for Thunderbolts, this thing just kept going for Acrobatics, so we're able to take it out with a few Rock Slides from Crustle. Next up is Seismitoad, and it misses a Muddy Water on our swap to Leavanny, so we're able to take it out easily with the Leaf Blade. Next up he sends in his Drapion, and with the combination of Defend Order and Roost, our Vespiquen should be tanky enough to take this thing out. Unfortunately, I get greedy and I go for an extra attack order to get more damage in on it more quickly, and we lose our Vespiquen to 2 crits of Night Slash in a row. Rest easy, Cayenne. With our free swap, we bring in Heracross, who's able to finish off the Drapion with a Dig, and he sends in his final Mon, Toxicroak, and we're able to take this thing out with a Dig and a Brick Break. All things considered, that's an okay Ghetsis fight. I'll take it. Now there's just one final challenge that stands in the way of us and the Elite Four, this final rival battle with Hugh. As usual, he leads with his Unpheasant, so we lead with Galvantula and take it out with a Discharge. Next up, Emboar comes in, so we Volt Switch out Galvantula and we bring out Shuckle, who does exactly what he does best, Toxic Stall. Through a series of protecting and resting, we're finally able to take this Emboar out. Next up is Simipour, who is just no match for Basil, and it goes down in one Leaf Blade. Now he's down to his final Pokemon, Bouffalon. We're a little bit scared because Leavanny's kind of frail, so we bring in Crustle to take this thing on. And through a series of Rock Slides, we're able to take it out. Hugh hands over the TM for Thunderbolt, and our next stop is the Elite Four. As we head in, a spooky wave overtakes me, and I'm overcome with the desire to take on the spookiest trainer with the spookiest team on the spookiest Elite Four of all time. And so I head in to challenge Shauntal, the Ghost-type trainer. Now in hindsight, there were a couple other trainers that I could have gone for first that would have been a lot easier than this, but 2020, you know? Our plan for this team was to sweep with our Guts Havin', Choice Band Holden, Night Slash Slangin' Heracross. But unfortunately, I overlooked one tiny little thing about Cofagrigus. Actually, 2 things. The first thing I overlooked is that Night Slash won't actually take this thing out in one hit. It lives with a sliver of health. And the second thing is that its ability Mummy makes it so if you make contact with it, your ability changes to Mummy, so we ultimately end up losing Guts on Heracross. It's all uses a full restore on the next turn, and we hit it with another Night Slash, and it does like no damage because burn halves your attack. And if you watch my stream, you know I do not make backup plans, so I'm panicking. And we decide to do just about the only thing we know how to do, Toxic Stall with Shuckle. We end up taking this thing out, but we end up with a really low Shuckle with a burn on it. And also a Heracross with next to no HP. Next up she sends in Golurk, so we swap to Leavanny. After making the swap, we realize how big of a problem her ace Chandelure is for our team now. So we use our time against this Golurk to try to set up some Swords Dances so that we can hit this Chandelure pretty hard. We do only end up getting off one Swords Dance safely before we actually are forced to take out the Golurk with Leaf Blade. Luckily it goes down in one, but next up is Chandelure, who resists all of Leavanny's moves. At this point, we're in such a bad spot that we have to make the hard decision to sack Basil. We get some good damage off with Leaf Blade, but ultimately go down to a 4 times effective Fire Blast. You did well, Basil. Thank you. At this point, we're able to safely swap our Heracross back in and finish this Chandelure off with a Night Slash. Finally, she sends in her last Pokemon, Driftveil, which we know has Aftermath, so we have to swap out Heracross and bring in Crustle to finish it off. Certainly wasn't the worst fight I've ever had, but I've definitely had better openers to the Elite Four. Next, we decide to head over to the Psychic Trainer, Caitlin. This one should be slightly easier because our bug moves do hit all Psychic types super effectively, and we probably should have gone for this one first, but whatever. She leads with Musharna and we lead with Mustard, and we take this opportunity to get a Swords Dance off. Actually, we get 2 Swords Dances off. And this should definitely allow us to sweep if we can outspeed the Sigiglyph. We take this Musharna out with a Night Slash, and she sends in Sigiglyph, who we're only 60% confident that we're going to outspeed. We do end up outspeeding it and taking it out with a Night Slash though. Next up is Reuniclus, who is just simply too slow to do anything and goes down to a Night Slash. And finally, her Ace Got the Tail comes in and goes down just like the rest. Next, we head over to take on another certified spooky guy, Grimsley. Grimsley specializes in dark types, which are also weak to bug. And also Heracross's fighting moves. Another prime candidate for the first trainer we should have challenged instead of the ghost type trainer. Unfortunately, his lead Liepard keeps this from being a simple Heracross sweep. Since it has Aerial Ace, we're really scared, so we end up leading with Galvantula instead of Heracross to take it out. It faces out, but we take it out with an Electric Gym Charge Thunderbolt on the next turn. Next, he sends in his Scrafty. We swap in Heracross, and we're easily able to dispatch it with a Brick Break. Next up is Bisharp, and I think we actually misclick and accidentally send in our Crustle here, so we end up taking a lot more damage on Heracross than we need to. But it goes down to a Brick Break. Finally, he sends in Crocodile, who we're worried will outspeed our Heracross, so we bring in Shuckle to do the old Shuckle stall. It takes a little bit too much damage, so we bring Crustle back in to finish it off with an X-Scissor. 3 down, 1 to go. Finally, it's time to take on the fighting type trainer, Marshall, who is by far the scariest member of the Elite Four for us. Mainly because every member of his team either has a rock type move or a flying type move. So we prep a little bit, and then we head into the fight and hope it goes well. He leads with Throat, which we easily take out with a banded close combat from Heracross. Next up is Mineshaw, who easily outspeeds Heracross and knows Bounce, which is 4 times effective against it, so we bring in Crustle. We get this thing low enough with Aerial Ace that it actually nopes out with U-Turn and swaps in Conkeldurr. We definitely were not prepared for this. He queued up a dig to try to dodge a high jump kick and make the Mineshaw take recoil. But what actually ended up happening is we locked ourselves in against a Stone Edge from Conkeldurr. But somehow Crustle manages to hang on with 1 HP, so clutch. We medevac Crustle out of there and bring in Heracross, who quickly dispatches Conkeldurr with a close combat. Next, the Mineshaw comes back in, so we bring in Shuckle. And this is where I learned this fun little trick against high jump kick. If you protect high jump kick, they actually end up taking the 50% recoil every time. Marshall does heal up his Mineshaw from here, but that buys us a turn to recharge protect. We protect the first high jump kick, so it's at 50% HP. And we take the coin flip and go for the second protect, which we manage to pull off and take out the Mineshaw. Finally, he's just down to Sock, who we end up toxic stalling. And Shuckle ends up taking a little bit too much damage, so Scolipede gets to come in and share the action. I did want to take this Sock out in a different way, but its sturdy ability just makes it too risky. Finally, we're down to just the champion. Oh, and also this comically long set of stairs. We finally reach the top and head into the challenge of the champion Iris, who has a dope room. And in addition to this, she has an absolutely juiced team. She's definitely the hardest fight in this game. She leads off with a Hydreigon, so we send in Heracross. 1 close combat is more than enough to take this thing out. Next up is probably the scariest member of her team, this Archeops. While it may look goofy, it's a rock flying type, which is super effective against us, and it also has a crazy high attack and crazy high speed. So we end up bringing in Crustle. And we just pray that it can live through a Rock Slide here, which it does, and we manage to hit it with our own Rock Slide. This is enough to get it down into the red, which triggers its Defeatist ability. And Defeatist is an ability that halves the attack of Archeops when it's below half HP, thankfully. The next turn, Iris heals, so we go for another Rock Slide to make sure it stays in Defeatist. And at this point, we just have to pray that we can live through a Defeatist attack from Archeops, which we do because Crustle is super clutch, and we take it out with our own Rock Slide. Next up, Iris sends in Lapras, so we swap in our Galvantula. It tanks the Ice Beam and then lands the Thunder. That's half her team down. Next up is her Life Orb Sheer Force Druddigon. And since it's the last fight, we end up using Thunder here to get some chip damage and get a safe swap in. Your sacrifice will not go unnoticed, Dill. Now we have a free swap to bring Heracross back in and take this thing out with a close combat. And for some reason, she sends in Aggron, who's 4 times weak to close combat, so of course it goes down in 1 hit. Finally, she sends in her scariest Pokemon, her ace Haxorus, who has Dragon Dance and can definitely sweep our team if it gets one off. We hit it with a close combat, but it lives because it holds a Focus Sash. And it gets its Dragon Dance off. The next turn it goes for a Dual Chop, which will definitely kill Heracross, but it misses, and we're able to pull off a close combat and finish off her ace, and we are finally the Pokemon League champion. Whew, that was a fun one. This Gen 5 bug team was a great time, and I must say, Black 2 is definitely one of my favorite Pokemon games after playing it this time. Again, if you enjoyed the video, please throw me a like. It really helps me out in the algorithm, and also subscribe to the channel for more. Anyway, I'm out. Till next time.